colorful thing in this house is probably my lipstick, and I'm stressing out because it's so bold. But this is my favorite mug. I'm sure you've had people on this show that have really fun, exciting mugs. But
I think it's awesome.
Cheers.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cheryl Chris for MovieGuide's Backstage Pass, and this is Coffee and Conversation with Moriah Smallbone. Hi, Moriah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I have never been on an interview before where I've been asked to prepare a coffee mug. So I'm just going to tease that.
You just starred in the first ever musical movie about Mary and Joseph's love story called Journey to Bethlehem. This is the greatest story ever told. What was that like for you?
It's such a great film. For anyone who hasn't seen it, it's a musical take on the Nativity story. So the way I like to say is it's like The Greatest Showman in High School Musical in the storytelling of Jesus's birth. And so it's just this beautiful combination. There's so much color, there's so much music, so much dancing. And I love that our director and his family, who developed this script over the course of 10 to 12 years, really, I think is how long he and Nikki spent on it. They allowed for their imaginations to run wild and to breathe life into the margins of scripture and text. And so when you watch the film, there are things like Mary having a pet donkey and a little shepherd girl, and Mary having two sisters, one of which I get to play. So I love how we've been able to look at this story, and I've had several people be like, well, did Mary really have a sister? And I'm like, well, we don't know that she didn't have a sister. That's kind of the context of the whole film. And it's allowed for, I think, a very colorful, imaginative version of the story where a lot more people can find themselves in it.
I absolutely love the movie. It was incredible acting and singing and dancing and costumes and scenery. It really was amazing, an amazing cast. Now, you play the part of Deborah, Mary's sister, and you were cast first, and then your husband, Joel Smallbone of Working and Country, was cast after you as Herod's son. How did that come about?
Yeah, you've done your research, Cheryl. So I got asked to audition for the movie December of last year, so a year ago. And immediately when I read the script, I was like, I'm in. This version of Mary, we're so used to hearing about a submissive, demure, quiet version of Mary, and I've always struggled to relate, and I'm anything but those things. And this version of Mary was stubborn and opinionated and ambitious, and that got me right away. It got me so excited. I was immediately drawn to the script. My husband, his biggest concern was, I don't know how I feel about you moving to Spain for 2 months. But, in our partnership, which was founded on creative collaboration, no matter how we feel, we've always stepped back to this place of, how can I support you in the creative calling that you have in your life? And so ultimately he was just like, I'm going to miss you, but go do it. Have fun. I'll come visit you for 4 days in the middle of shooting. And while my husband was preparing to come visit me for his 4-day trip, we confirmed Antonio Banderas, and the director came to me and was like, I'm so excited. We've got Antonio. Now I have to cast his son. And somebody tipped me off and told me that your husband sings and acts. I stayed up all night last night, researching him, and do you think he would be interested in playing the role? And so my first thought was, and this is a muscle that both my husband and I have trained, how do we hold the door open for one another while also being objective? And so I was like, okay, great. Let's meet in a few minutes and we'll talk about it. I want to hear all about the role, everything that you're looking for, and then I'll tell you what I honestly think. And as Adam Anders and one of our producers, Ryan Bussey, were sitting in the lobby of this hotel, and they start telling me like, we want somebody who's a super strong singer. We want somebody who knows how to play a dark role, but also can, play a redemption story. We want somebody who is kind on set and who, has a healthy like personal life. And so like they're going through all these things, and I'm like, you're describing my husband, and I'm pretty confident that he can play this role. And if you watch the film, you'll see he absolutely nails the role of Antipater, and I'm very, very proud of the work that he did on set.
He did an amazing job as well. Journey to
Mm.
Bethlehem really focuses on the women, the characters in
Mhm.
the story. How can women from the past, like Mary, speak to us today here in the present?
I think that we disassociate from that era and forget that women had feelings back then too. So, kind of going back into their shoes and going, what would I, Moriah, feel like if I was living in that culture and I had those expectations put on me? And how would I respond? And I think that's why this version of Mary resonates with me so much because, I don't think Mary was particularly excited about everybody questioning her character and her commitment to her betrothed in getting pregnant. I'm sure she would have looked at that and counted the cost. And yet, in hindsight, I think some of the most challenging things that we're called to can often be our greatest moments of opportunity. We just don't see it in the moment.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the team. It was a husband wife couple that spearheaded the film. And the story is about a couple, Joseph and Mary, and you and your husband Joel are a couple. How cool is that? I just love that.
Yes, yeah, I think, marriage is a pretty powerful thing. Nikki and Adam Anders and their two sons really created like they were on set. They dreamed these stories and characters into existence. Nikki wrote so many of my favorite melodies and lyrics in all of these songs. She's a brilliant songwriter and singer, and it's very rare to step onto a set where um a married couple is really at the helm. But I think we're starting to see more of that, in Hollywood and in filmmaking. You're seeing these couples come together and bring the feminine and the masculine perspective and partner with one another and lift one another up. That's something that my husband and I really hope to be a part of.
So awesome. You just had a cameo role in The Chosen season 3 finale, and you played Bathsheba. Will we see more of you? And what was it like being on set of The Chosen?
The Chosen is an amazing organization. I mean, it is they've got their own like world and fans and teams and production, and it's beautiful to just kind of step into as a guest, invite to be invited in. Dallas and Amanda Jenkins are um, really quality people with good hearts, and they're very fair and balanced and creative and imaginative people. Those are some of my favorite people to work with. So um, I'm really glad that I got to be a part of season 3. And I my character is returning. I don't know how much detail I can share about that, but I did go back and film a bit more this year. And I would say that the scenes that I was asked to come back and film initially, my first response was absolutely not. I talk about like being called to something you don't feel like you're capable of doing. I was just like, I can't do that. Um, I'm I'm an artist. I'm not a thespian, but I'm so glad that I said yes, and I'm so glad that Dallas created an environment for me to step in as a professional, as an actress, and to use everything at my disposal to make sure that I could communicate this story and this character with conviction and with authenticity. And at the back end of the scene, or scenes, I felt an incredible amount of gratitude. I felt like something very out of body happened on that set. Um, I have an astronomically, exponentially more respect for the craft of acting than I did before doing that scene. And it made me sick for 2 weeks afterwards. So it was very intense. I'm really looking forward to people watching it and just being able to have a dialogue about the specific scenes and characters. So we should get back on this and talk after you've seen it, because there's going to be a lot to discuss.
It sounds very intense.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
So you're so busy. It's incredible. You just co-produced a movie called Unsung Hero, and it's about your husband's family's real life story. How challenging was that?
It was like family therapy put on a screen. It was a lot. It was a lot. I'm so thankful that I got to play a very specific off-camera role, being involved in casting and in speaking into the creative. My husband and I, it all started with us going away in January, which we go away every January to just think about and process and ponder and meditate on what we want the rest of the year to look like, or what we want to focus on, kind of dream vision cast. And we read a few scripts in a hot tub in Florida. And reading the Unsung Hero script, uh even though at the time it wasn't our favorite script of all the scripts we were reading, the timing felt right. The timing of telling this story, when we considered our community, when we considered this cultural moment and the certain beats that the story taps on. It's talking about family, it's talking about the sacrifice of women, it's talking about pushing through depression. It's talking about immigration. It's talking about so many important topics, and it's doing it in a very subtle and nuanced way that it just felt like the right time to tell this story. And I absolutely tip my hat to, yes, of course, my husband's performance. I think, when people see this movie, that's probably going to be the biggest takeaway, is like, that was my biggest takeaway the first time we watched the rough cut, which was in Spain while we were filming Journey to Bethlehem. My first comment to him was, I didn't know you could act like that. I did not know. I did not know. I didn't know. Now I know. So he shines so brightly, and his performance is brilliant. But I think, really the person who deserves to have so many hats tipped towards her is Rebecca. Rebecca, my sister-in-law. Um, Kirley did an amazing job playing young Rebecca in the story, but my sister-in-law, like, this is her real life. This is her real story. This is what she experienced. And of course, it was a very challenging thing for my parents-in-law to move their whole family, across an ocean and start from scratch. But Rebecca being the eldest, it was almost like she had the same pressures and responsibilities of the parents, and yet none of the tools as a teenager. She had the weight of the world put on her shoulders from a very young age. And I have watched her for the last 13 years intentionally go after her own healing. And I hope and pray that people watch this film and can see her life and see the beauty of sacrifice, and how sometimes redemption comes decades later, and acknowledgement, comes way later, and sometimes acknowledgement never comes. But I don't want that to be the case with her. If I have anything to do with it, I want to acknowledge her sacrifice, her work, the pioneer that she was in music for so many women, and the protector that she was of her family and provider for so many years. So I'm very honored to know Rebecca.
You're looking forward to seeing that. You are an accomplished Christian singer and songwriter, and you've been writing songs since you were like 13 years old. You're working on a new album. Tell us about that.
Yeah. I'm so excited for the music that I'm making right now. And for people watching, it, it must be weird to hear someone talk about making an album. It's like so intangible. Like, how do you do that? Well, I'm not a very manic creative. I think a lot of stereotypes around artists are like they eat paint, they're like crazy, it's like um no, I would say that I'm a very uh structured person. So I wake up excited to work on my music, and I treat my job as an artist like a 9 to 5, and I often go past 5 because I'm so excited about what I'm doing. And this album is like nothing I've ever done before, and yet it's like everything I've done has led to this moment. It's a Latin country project, and I'm producing it with Paul Mabry, who's a world class drummer and producer here in Nashville, Tennessee. I've known him since I was 17, and I feel like this album is an homage to my family, to my heritage, to the sacrifice that my grandparents made in immigrating here when they were in their 20s. And my grandfather was a trumpet player, a touring trumpet player in Mexico, and he traded in his trumpet for a busboy apron, and worked in service industry for 40 years. So it's really it's exciting because on one hand I feel like I'm helping tell my in-laws story, and then with music I feel like I'm able to tell my family story. And at this stage of life, I am more excited to operate from that place of like honor and gratitude and lineage than anything else.
If you enjoy videos that follow your values like ours, and you want to help us continue, go to movieguide.org/donate, because we're actually a nonprofit. You may not know that, but we're working in Hollywood every day to help families have more choices that follows their values. And also subscribe right now.